All right.
Recording is now in progress.
Got it.
I guess Luke, I assume you follow on your intro by now.
In at number 100 from Akira Kurosawa, it's a rumination on the nature of a life well lived. It's Ikiru.
Is it a film or is it filth? That's what we decide here. Films are filth. It's the Citizen Kane of podcasting, where we look at the top 100 films on IMDb and the bottom 100 films as voted by IMDb users. I guess that's the right term.
By the scum of the earth.
By the scum of the earth. Okay.
I'm looking for filmth.
Filmth? That's
Yeah.
I can't even say that. That's too difficult to even get out.
Filmth.
Yeah.
Filmth.
Okay. Anyway, this is Matt. I was the second to talk.
This is Luke. I was the first to talk.
This is Mark. I was the third to talk.
There. And that's the way no, I screwed up the order of the intro there. Okay.
No, we said the numbers. They can figure it out.
Yeah, do your own math. Listeners are required to do their own math.
Do your research.
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't doing no math, so that's on the listeners.
So I first saw this film probably 20-something years ago in my full-on film dork phase. I think we our mutual friend Andrew has said a few times when he left the Blockbuster, he got a bunch of films for like $1, and I had him get me several Kurosawa films. I got this and Throne of Blood and maybe The Hidden Fortress for like $1 on VHS. This one, I watched once around age 20. You can't make sense of it at age 20, I think. So I watched Throne of Blood and Seven Samurai more often, and then I just watched this again.
I feel like
watched this film for the first time yesterday, but weirdly, last weekend before last, I was at the movie theater and saw the trailer for the English language remake of this film that I had no idea about. And it's just pure coincidence that ended up being the film that we're starting this podcast with.
And you told me who is the star of that again?
Bill Nighy.
Okay, I guess. Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Oh, I think it's our friend Rob made the observation that Bill Nighy is the guy who he brings a touch of prestige, but he's only ever actually done like crap films where he's the touch of prestige. He's never actually done anything prestige. So maybe this is him finally trying to make his real movie.
I guess, but it's just like a remake of I mean, how does that even translate to a different culture? Okay, maybe we'll see.
This could translate to a different culture. You just changed The Office. This could be the movie Office Space. You could just put the movie Office Space in the middle of it, and it would make perfect sense.
Yeah, I think Matt is hung up on the idea that this is a film about the Japanese workplace. And obviously it touches on that, but like, it's not actually unique to Japan that we waste our lives toiling for capitalism, or that everything is run by bureaucracies that can't make decisions. Japan is a particularly extreme example of both those things, especially at the period this is set, but it's not unique.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess you could do it. And I was thinking, I guess if you're doing the UK bureaucracy, you got a lot more to go with because, American bureaucracy is just like aggressively annoying. Like
American bureaucracy usually involves a lot of incompetence and nepotism and graft and laziness. I mean, that's how it feels to me anyway. It's just there's a bunch of like 80% of the people you deal with faked it till they made it, and they're still faking it, and they insist. Yeah, they are screaming fakeness at you.
Well, I guess here they politely tell you to go away, whereas in America they like aggressively ignore you or tell you to go away.
Yeah, basically the last office job I had was I was basically trying to get accounting to pay for things, and they said they would, and then they just kept not paying for them.
Had you seen this one before, Mark?
No, I had not. My first time was last week.
Okay. That is kind of the point here, to force ourselves to watch a lot of things that we would not have seen otherwise, both in a good and a bad way.
I think it's the first Kurosawa movie I've seen that wasn't like a period piece.
It's my first non-samurai one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's what's interesting is that we're watching it 70 years later, so to me it feels like a period piece about like Showa era Japan, but yeah.
up to this point, Kurosawa had not really made samurai films. I mean, he basically made like city, like crime films and things. I think it's the 50, like Rashomon's a year after this, if I remember correctly. So
It's kind of awesome. It feels like he was building up to it. Maybe he got enough clout where he's like, you know what, build a cat or take me to this castle. We're gonna film stuff in this castle.
it's like
Hmm.
Brahms couldn't write his first symphony till he was 50 almost.
Hmm.
Sorry, that was
What did he do before that?
he wrote lots of music.
Jingles for advertisements.
Yeah, lullabies.
Juicy fruit, it's going to move you.
But he was just like,
That.
well, in his case, I don't think that was Kurosawa's case because there was no Beethoven of Japanese cinema. That would be him, I guess. But in Brahms' case, he was like, I can't write a symphony because it's going to get directly compared to Beethoven. I'm not ready for that. So it took him a while. Let's get deeper in this film, but I will go ahead and give people the quick plot. Kenji Watanabe is hitting the late stages of bureaucratic civil service middle age, as well as the late stages of terminal stomach cancer. He hides the latter part of that information from his sycophantic son and daughter-in-law, instead partying down in the seedier parts of Tokyo and making platonic buddies with the quirky girl who just quit his department. But duty calls, and Kenji's life needs some meaning. He returns to his job and pushes through mountains of red tape to build a park that the locals can dig. He dies singing in the snow on a swing in the realized park, and his former coworkers just can't make head or tails of his motivations. Plot complete.
I like that you used late stage so much there because, you know, late stage capitalism is what really kills him in this.
Did I say it multiple times?
You said you made a little point about late in a career, late stage cancer.
So.
Late
stages.
Yeah.
I used it twice. Okay. I also wrote it late at night, so you know.
I'll say this: when I was watching it at the beginning, when the guy at the doctor's office was saying they're just going to tell you it's an ulcer, but it's actually cancer and you'll die, and then they tell him it's an ulcer and they insist it's an ulcer, I thought, oh, this is what this is going to be. He's going to think that he has cancer, but he actually just had an ulcer. But like, no, not at all. They actually legitimately lied to him.
Yeah, as soon as he walks out the door, the doctor says, "Oh, he's got 6 months to live."
Yeah, they had to do that, and that's one of the most messed up things in the entire film, I think.
Well, I mean, I guess I had my little run-in with lymphoma a few years ago, and and that was that was like the Disneyland of cancer, right? But but they weren't like. I remember it was like it like took several steps for them to properly tell me what it was, even like recently.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I guess you're just as a doctor, I guess people flip out in your office if you're too direct sometimes.
I don't know. I can't imagine what that's like in Japan. Like,
Well,
there
I
has to
mean,
be some.
the implication here, and I'm sure it's somewhat unfair to real Japanese doctors, was if we tell him the truth, he won't go to work.
Well,
was how I read what the guy was saying to him.
That's how we dealt with COVID.
Yeah,
like if we make too big of a deal out of it, then people won't go to work. So economy's still tanking along on that one.
Get your COVID holiday. Let's talk about the actors a little bit because Takashi Shimura kind of is Kurosawa's main man. Mifune's more of like the guy that, I guess he's the one we usually identify with Kurosawa, but this guy is the guy that actually shows up in like 19 of his films. I think this might be his only time as the actual lead, though.
Well, he was incredible. I don't know. He was he managed to make the role endearing and funny and sad at the same time, and it wasn't like I know a lot of the other characters in the film kind of wanted to get away from him, but I wanted to spend time with him.
He had this really interesting mix, like just in his face, of sometimes looking sort of like a droopy little dog, but then with certain angles and certain lighting looking so skeletal.
Yeah, and his voice like deteriorates as the film goes. Like, I mean, that was a pretty. I mean, I guess it's an acting choice, but because
that's like, very Japanese acting choice.
Right.
One, I think, yeah.
But we won't do this movie too soon. But just compare this role with his Seven Samurai role, where it's pretty wild. How different he is between the two.
Hmm.
It reminds me of like I read that Christopher Reeve, part of why he made such a great Superman was he took these specific acting lessons on how to control his shoulder muscles. So it's like he looks so much more buff as Superman than Clark Kent, even though he's clearly not doing much except for changing clothes. And I
He
feel
yeah, he
like,
does. He did do a great job of seeming like a different person.
yeah,
And like then you watch like Lois and Clark in the 90s, where he's just this buff supermodel as both. It's like
well,
The
from that,
glasses
based
only
on
do
that
so
dude's,
much.
yeah, based on Dean Kane's politics, I can only assume that he's kind of an idiot.
yeah.
I happily live in a world where I have no clue what Dean Kane's politics are.
Well, don't worry, he's going to tweet at us really soon.
Okay, cool. Um, the co-star, I mean, it's basically like kind of almost a vignette sort of films. I guess Miki Odigiri as the well, I call it the quirky girl. I don't know. What was your take?
She is like an early example of a manic pixie dream girl in a way.
I thought so.
Yeah,
I almost wrote that in my notes.
she's like Laverne and Shirley. That's what she reminded me of.
Oh, okay.
Kind of.
That's too old a
Laverne
reference.
or
Yeah,
Shirley.
I get it.
But I mean, Laverne and Shirley took place during this time period, even though it was a period piece, unlike this
Hmm.
film. It was
Right,
a
right.
70s show about the 50s, and this is the 50s.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas Laverne and Shirley, I never picked up on that. Happy Days, you do. They kind of shove that down your throat, but
Do the math, listeners.
that's your. You do not listen to this podcast without like a blank sheet of paper and a pencil and a protractor in front
Yeah,
of
you
you.
have to take notes. You have to draw the map. This is
Draw
like
the
the
map.
first Zelda.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Early manic pixie dream girl. Sure. But yeah. I guess that's the thing in Japan, especially in 1950. The idea was as soon as women get married, they're out of the office anyway. She quits because she's bored, which is a much better reason. But
Yeah, she wants to make bunny rabbits.
yeah, that's cool. You gotta get behind that, right?
Well, I wonder like how the Japanese viewing audience of 1952 felt about. Oh, she just wants to make bunny rabbits. I mean, how do you guys think that the Japanese people would have reacted to that?
Well, because clearly people were quite mocking of working in a government office building.
Yeah.
So I don't think people would have been like, oh, she's wasting her life. And producing toys is basically what saved Japan after the war.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they look like cool bunny rabbits. I'm just like I'm curious of the because you guys have more of a perspective than I do, but I'm really curious of like how audience would have felt about this in the 50s because I think Americans would probably have connected with this pretty well, even though this barely got an American release at all, and I think it just had like the dancing lady on the poster from the bar.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
called
I saw
oh, it
that
was-
poster and that she has a very large position on it as like considering.
and it was called. Did you see what the name of it was when it got the American release?
No.
Doomed.
That's interesting because that's the opposite of the Japanese name. And so
Exactly.
misses the point.
It's like someone watched the first 10 minutes of it, which might have been what happened, actually.
It's like if they watched It's a Wonderful Life but didn't see the ending and just called it It's a Shit Life.
They called it Bank.
That'd be the Pixar version.
That's the Pixar movie called Bank would be about a bank that talks and it spits money.
It walks. It walks the whole bank.
It
has
walks
to walk
around.
it. Yeah.
And it falls in love with a crypto scam.
What is the crypto scam? Another building?
It's the manic pixie dream girl of banks.
Okay, that's cool.
But then the bank's parents die and it's very sad.
Yeah.
We should be. This is the new Pixar's writer room. Yeah, right on. So I guess everyone. Okay, well, there's our ragamuffin guy that takes Kenji
Well,
drinking through Yoshiwa.
there's kanji's all the way through, but then it's like there's the section where he tries to live with this writer guy. There's the section where he tries to learn how to live from this girl. And then it feels like they're going to have a whole section about him building the park. But they kind of skip most of it. We see a few flashbacks, but it just jumps straight away to, and now he's dead.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to bring up the guy he parties with, because
Mm.
past that, it's like, and there's a bunch of bureaucrats,
Yeah.
know. And I mean, the whole point is, well, I guess we're talking about them now. The whole point is like, as they're arguing about like what are his motivations, why did he do this, do you know he's dying? I mean, they're having, it's just like the most inane conversation possible, you know.
What
It's
was
literally,
that was to me the most relatable part of the film was that we've all been to funerals where it brings out like the worst in people, right? I think
Mhm.
that might be like a universal thing. And it sort of brings out the worst in these guys, and then slowly they realize like what this guy was actually really cool, and they're like, we're gonna change everything, even though they're drunk. So the things you realize when you're drunk
they're
don't
gonna forget it tomorrow.
necessarily
Yeah.
Yeah.
forget, give up, same thing. But that
The
was
the one who really came across as slime during that whole bit was the mayor,
the deputy
making the
mayor.
funeral about him, which
Oh
again,
yeah.
very real and well observed.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
they
when
had
the
that.
one guy says, actually, screw the deputy mayor, and then somebody's like, let's not go that far. That just squashes it immediately. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's where you know, Kurosawa had been making all those crime films the past few years, like Stray Dog and stuff, because you know, like some of the interactions with the upper guys in City Hall does feel like dealing with the Yakuza or something.
Mm.
Well, wasn't there literally Yakuza in this film, or did I
Yeah, yeah.
misread that?
I think that's what I'm saying. I felt like he was going through the bureaucratic process and then hitting a Yakuza wall, you know?
Yeah, well, which especially back in the 50s was part of the bureaucratic process, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I
When you see
mean,
those little mom and pop stores, they're paying something to the mob, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Like that
I
is
live.
a part of the Japanese infrastructure is just the Yakuza deals with this bit.
I mean, I live in Atlanta, and we've had at least one mayor in jail in the past 20 years, like in prison, and another one might go to prison soon. Another ex-mayor. Like we definitely have our issues with stuff like that.
They could have the mayor's block in the prison. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be like the Kingpin in Daredevil, where it's like he's doing a bunch of bench pressing, and people come to see him, and he's like, "What can the mayor do for you?"
Yeah, right on. Of course, that's Luke's dream, right?
Pixar should do that too.
But it's not my dream that the actual Kingpin rule actual New York, Matt.
No, no,
It's my dream that Spider-Man goes and beats up all the current people who rule New York. I don't need additional bad guys.
No, I thought you want to just be pumping iron when people come up and you're like, "What can I do for you?" You're gonna be the
Oh,
Kingpin.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
what I
my
thought.
dream to be the Kingpin.
Yeah,
sure.
you can be a benevolent Kingpin if you want, but yeah,
Yeah,
he thinks
maybe
he's benevolent.
he could be
at least,
Kingpin outside of prison, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have many times in my life thought a little stay in prison, finish my writing, get in shape. It wouldn't be too bad.
We've all had that thought, and that's what capitalism does to you. I'm just like,
Yep.
man, I wouldn't have to worry about where to go to work, and where I get food from, and
So the one
structuring my
thing that
time.
has me slightly conflicted, and I'm not saying it's a bad artistic choice or anything, but in order to live, he does go back to his bureaucratic job, and the best he can do is a park. I guess that's good for 5 months. I don't know.
No, the issue I have isn't that. I can understand that, but the issue I have is that the fact that he got that park built is at least partly luck, because it's like it's one of those things where I know he tried the best he could and he succeeded, but it's also like, well, under some circumstances he wouldn't have necessarily gotten it done because he just happened to, I don't know, see an opportunity and go for it. But it's still a success story, which all success all relies partly on luck. I mean, how do we get this podcast? We were all lucky we have computers.
Yep.
I have to say, well, I wonder if it's like kind of well, the people in this conversation between music, writing, things like that, I guess have a little more of an artistic vibe, where this is a basically just get something built vibe, which I don't know if any of us have as much.
Well, I've always been, and a lot of musicians do this, I've always been a little bit wary of the where somebody writes a song that's like, hey man, I can't work in an office, I can't work 9 to 5, you're a zombie, man. And I'm like, it's hard for me to this film doesn't do that for very long, but it's hard for me to deal with any art form that looks down on like someone who just goes to work and works in an office, because we can't all make art. It's
Yeah,
just not
and
it's not possible.
like even there are plenty of people out there who are talented enough to have been great artists who just didn't get lucky.
Or maybe didn't feel like it.
Or
That's
that,
the other
yeah.
thing.
Feel like taking that risk and giving up on having, security and
I guess that's the
stability.
point of the first two people he sort of shadows is we have the writer, he's doing that. The lady's making her bunnies, right? So
Mhm.
I guess his inspiration is, well, I'll at least I know this one thing I've been doing for the past 30 plus years, and I can use that to at
Well,
least
that's it, because
this one
it's the
thing.
bunny girl. She's not bunny girl is a loaded term. It's just, she's not out like she's not out pursuing a particularly artistic career or anything. She's still working a job. She's just found a way to feel good about that job. And that's what he takes on board is like, okay, well, I don't have to go and write a novel or whatever to feel like I've done something with my life. I just have to take pride in doing this. And that
Yeah,
is actually
because
a good thing that anyone can take away.
that's true. I mean, the writer, you have to take away that the writer probably isn't that happy that often, because to go and have all that fun night on the town, he basically has to find a guy who says, "I have 50,000 yen. I just want to blow it as quickly as possible." Because
Right.
that's not
And
really real life.
that's not all the blowing that's going to happen with this money.
Okay.
No, this isn't 80s Japan, man.
As much as we were saying it's a period piece, though, some of these settings are weirdly modern too. There's the little local izakaya, Japanese pub, like, geez, 300 meters from my house, and it looks just like the pubs
Oh yeah,
in
I
this
think they
movie.
haven't changed in at least since this time period, maybe for like centuries before that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
your country just preserves things a lot better. I couldn't even find you like a Wendy's that looks like a Wendy's from 1995 in
Oh,
Atlanta.
I just seen pictures. It was a mall in Pennsylvania or New Jersey where they basically uncovered a Burger King that someone had locked the door to in like 1998. So it had like the super 80s styling and everything in there. So
Nice.
yeah, they should reopen that Burger King. Yeah, where it has like
There's like
the sideways or on angle squares like decorating the walls and stuff. Yeah.
You can
I
get the
miss
asbestos deluxe.
yeah. I miss when the Arby's had the thing where the seating was off to the side of the counter instead of directly in front of the counter. Remember those, the old Arby's?
I just remember that they had like their annex section with the kitchen. They had an arcade machine in the back, and it was the only fast food place that had an arcade machine.
I've never been to an Arby's, so I'll take your word for it.
It's imagine if you had like some roast beef and you sliced it really thin and then let it sit for a while and then made it into a liquid and then reconstituted it and then ate a sandwich of
Huh,
it.
sounds grand.
It's the best way I could describe it is sweaty.
the the bureaucratic setup in this movie is way more wooden. You don't find such nice woodwork, even in Nagano, where we have lots of nice woodwork. But the procedure is basically the same. Those crazy stamps are all the same. Like in Japan, when you go to a doctor's, they just have this weird brick of little stamps and that they use for prescriptions. And I noticed that in this movie because they still use that. I mean, what was it? I had a student a few years ago. This is when I taught adults, and she was a pharmacist, and like she was like, I still am required to keep all of my patient data on 3.5 inch floppy disks. This is
Oh
like
yeah.
2014 when she's. I
What
mean,
wasn't it recently that there's something, God, was it Chuck E. Cheese where they still run their like animatronics off 3.5 floppies?
oh, they probably
I can
do, but
believe that.
they've changed out. They don't. A lot of them don't have the animatronics anymore. Though now it's like a dance party, and they have a big screen, and they might have one or two people come out like in suits, but they don't really have the animatronics so much, which is a bummer.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, last time I saw a Chuck E. Cheese in person, the sign had a Chuck E. Cheese with his eyebrows gone. He doesn't have eyebrows anymore, so I was like, somebody check on him."
If you want to have since we already brought up Dean Cain, if you want to have fun looking at people's political history, look at the guy that built the Rockefeller explosion,
Oh, yeah.
The gorilla. That guy is a maniac. Luke, you'd like this.
Yeah.
It's a band. It's a animatronic
Uh,
band where the leader is a giant gorilla.
I think I have listened to a podcast on it.
Okay.
And Chuck E. Cheese and all the rest of them. And yeah, it's all pretty bonkers. Like 80s Atari money just getting passed around like
The pizza wars of the 80s,
Yeah.
man. That's a thing.
Yeah, that was a weird thing where Nolan Bushnell sold Atari, and part of the settlement was he wasn't allowed to compete in the video game space. So he's like, all right, I'll open this pizza place with robots.
That's
Just completely insane.
see, I feel like
It's
this
insane.
movie would have been a lot more fun.
If he went to Chuck E. Cheese.
No, if he had opened his own Chuck E. Cheese just before dying.
Do you know what the E stands for?
Entertainment, Charles Entertainment
Yes.
Cheese.
Charles Entertainment Cheese.
Hey, don't you try me on weird esoteric knowledge like this, dude.
I think that one's pretty well known these days.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
the original Chuck E. Cheese that seemed more like he'd break your legs and he had a bowler hat. That's my Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, the eyebrow shaving one is like,
yeah, you want the pizza, do you? You're gonna have to pay for that.
Well, it's like, what was the one big one that looked actually threatening?
The gorilla?
I guess that was a gorilla.
I don't remember. Okay, I don't remember the gorilla's name off the top of my head. So there is that. Maybe he's just gorilla. That's how Japan does it, at least.
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking of Showbiz Pizza.
Yeah, I know. Showbiz and Chuck E. Cheese. They were the same company for a while, and then like Chuck E. Cheese ate the bones. They told the Rockefeller guy like, "Can we have the IP for nothing?" He was like, "No." So
Yeah. Okay, for sure. The Showbiz, like the giant rat from Showbiz Pizza, is the scary one.
okay, yeah. There's a lot of these are scary, but yeah. That's
Is
why
it as scary as stomach cancer? I'm trying to segue back to the
I
actual
see.
film.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Well, I
Not
guess
really.
a neighborhood park is the Chuck E. Cheese of 1950s Japan.
Hmm.
When did Japan start getting really fun whack stuff? The 60s? I think we need Tokyo Tower to start making that happen.
Did you say
Yeah,
wax stuff?
Whack.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something. Like fun wax museums.
There's a brief run-in with Pachinko in this. I was like, oh, I guess Pachinko's like the
That was
ultimate
amused
joy.
me that the first thing he took him to show him how to live life was a pachinko parlor. Oh, you're not asking the right guy.
I think when Mark visited Japan, I just drug you through a pachinko parlor like with
Oh.
no warning, right?
Oh no, this is what happened. I was like, wow, I want to see a pachinko parlor, and then we kind of walk in there and everyone looks like zombies, and the din of the balls is just like like you couldn't hear anything. I was like, oh no, this is depressing. We have to leave right now. More
No,
depressing than any casino I've ever seen. Like the
the
lighting.
first time I went into a pachinko parlor, I turned around, walked out, and that was also the last time I went in a pachinko parlor.
Yeah,
That's
so
my story.
similar.
I've been in twice because I went in a second time with Mark and did the same thing.
Well, the thing is, growing up in the States, it's like I never even saw one of those until I was like randomly a kid up the street had one. And I was like, whoa, what's this? You put balls in it? Things have like seeing one machine out in the wild by itself isolated was amazing. But then when you get the context, that's the depressing part.
See, I
Right.
first learned about pachinko from when I worked at the radio station at University of Georgia, and we had an hour-long CD of pachinko noises, and I had a few graveyard shifts, and if people were like annoying me, if people were calling in and making annoying calls and requesting like Paula Abdul and stuff because it's college radio, what are you doing? I just put on the pachinko CD on the air. I did that at least twice. The other pachinko story involves another one of our friends, Scott, who before I married my wife, we were with her college friends, and Scott was visiting, and we were at a karaoke place, and he kept going pachinko. He was talking about pachinko, but he stressed the chin part, which is a penis in Japan. So my wife's uni friends all thought like this dude was like really like dirty. I've learned since then to stress the pa part, pachinko.
Pachinko.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we
Right.
hear chinko chinko every day because we teach kids. So
Also, if you're hanging out with your friend and some new friends, don't go penis, 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 penis.
I hope that's not the same time we did all the John Denver songs and put the word nutsack in because we had just seen the
Yeah,
Upright Citizens Brigade
yeah.
sketch. So we went to. I think that there weren't any friends. I mean, any extraneous friends around for that karaoke experience.
I definitely did wet ass pussy last time I went to karaoke, and I do not apologize.
I Do you know the name of the censored version?
No.
Well, the name is still WAP, but the lyric has changed, but it makes it worse.
It makes it worse. It's wet and gushy.
Wait, that's WAG.
Oh, okay. Well, they don't. They.
Oh, this
don't
is
think
the
about
hard
that hard.
thing. Is the hard thing was the karaoke version had a bunch of just stars on the screen for every curse word. So a bunch of them I was having to try and remember exactly where it said like fuck and where it said dick. Things like that. I was just,
Did you get it backwards? Did you get some even
I don't know.
weirder situations in the song?
That is like a level 8 karaoke song. You have to like really just spit the words. I have no idea how bad I did.
Okay. Luke, you
The
look
other
like you're
one-
checking big. Go ahead.
The song he sings in this for karaoke, Gondola no Uta, which is just the gondola song. So Uta is just song. But nonetheless, the thing it reminded me of was I Know Uta. Do you know that one, Matt?
Which one?
I Know Uta.
I bet if I heard it, I would.
So it's the song that was released. Strawberry Flower Song. It was released alongside the first Pikmin game. And it's just a song about being a Pikmin and following orders.
Wow.
But it really, really, really resonated with Japanese salarymen and was considerably more successful than the game.
Oh my god. I still haven't even played a Pikmin game yet. I'm like 4 is coming out and I'm like, can I start with 4? Maybe.
You definitely can, but I would definitely recommend 1. I think Pikmin 1, it's a pretty tight little game. You can finish it in like 8 hours. And I think it's one of the best games ever made.
Is that GameCube?
Yeah.
Okay, I have ways of playing that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a legitimate GameCube in your back room and a copy on disc. So
exactly, definitely.
You're gonna have to push through lots of bureaucratic red tape in order to play the first Pikmin.
Certainly have bureaucratic red tape that I also acquired legally in my back room.
You'll be singing that song by the time you finally get the Pikmin.
Yes, I will. I'll remember it.
Being cursed to live eternity as a Pikmin. Is that what you said the lyrics were about?
Well, yeah, but just for actual Pikmin. But yeah, that song was December 6th, 2001. And I guess, the lives of the average Japanese worker had not changed much in the 49 years between the film and the song.
Well, they were in the bubble afterglow at that point because 80s, 90s Japan was insane.
Yeah,
like
financially. But you still did just as much working. It's just that you did those nights out where you blow 50K every weekend.
I definitely, I visited in 2005 and 2012, and it definitely felt a lot more party centric in 2005. That might also be because Matt was partying more. I have no idea. But it felt, there's definitely way more cigarette machines and beer machines on the street.
Yeah, those are pretty much all gone now. So can't just swill down the street like that. You've got
might be for the best.
Yeah, you can still just go into the convenience store and buy 8 cans and put them in your pockets and go out and get pissed. And people do.
But you can't just machine it because they're like, hey, wait a minute, are high school kids buying from this machine? They're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's not a great idea to have it someone who really doesn't want to talk to a person or look at them, give them the option to just get as much alcohol as they want. That's sort of a filter.
You could go either way on that one.
It depends, yeah.
Oh, my first note about the song. This is the original, more depressing version when he's out partying. Is this
Hmm.
song's not getting anyone
That scene
laid.
was that was the
Play,
funniest thing in the film to me. Was him singing that song and everybody's kind of like, oh,
play some fuck club music instead.
it was great.
He gets up and does some Beanie Man. That would have been cool.
Yes, they had definitely had Beanie Man in 1952.
They did in Japan. It's always been, ahead of
Oh yeah,
us.
that's true. Yeah,
Beanie Man's always been here.
Beanie San. Anyway,
Yeah. Oh, you just said
I don't
anyway
know
to
what
fill
I
up
was.
space.
I was thinking of making a point, and I don't remember. How do you guys feel like the workplace has changed during the time that you've been working in Japan?
Well, our workplace specifically has changed because we were like a small-ish company when I joined, just basically ran by a manager who started the company and was a dictator who can do what she wanted. And she's like mostly retired, and we've been bought by corporate overlords and whatever. And so the company has started to have to obey laws. I guess I won't say any more than that on the record.
All right, that's like
Yeah.
that can be a mixed bag.
There's still a lot of I guess in America it's like you're doing this company a favor by working for them, right? Kind of.
Hmm.
Where Japan it's very much
That's
like the company is you owe the company.
I think that most entrepreneurs in America consider the employees to be like indebted to them, even if it's not actually. I think
But
people
the
right now
employees
there's
themselves
really
maybe don't agree.
I think that employees are starting to disagree in far greater numbers. But it's like it's interesting seeing the backlash to things like what they call the great resignation, which is kind of ridiculous because unemployment isn't really any higher than it was before the pandemic, but a lot of people died who worked, I guess. But you'll definitely see things where someone will post a job listing that's like now hiring non-idiots, and now it's like people will roast the shit out of them in comments,
Right.
which is the correct move, because it's like you don't actually. I've known this for years. It's like if someone is complaining about anyone who worked for them when they're trying to get someone to work for them, that is like a red flag, the red flag. Do not work for people who are like out of the gate insulting people who worked for them before.
What
Yeah,
what if
definitely.
what if
But I
it's like
think the
now
to answer
hiring
Mark's
morons? We finally have enough that we can hire some morons.
Uh, so like a lot of jobs are also scams here. I'd imagine probably a greater
Yeah.
number. Like there was a whole thing when I was in high school. It was like kids would ride around in trucks and try to sell speakers to people. Like that was a whole thing that everyone knew about, where it's like they pay you in cash and you go around and just pull up people in the parking lot. Hey man, you want to buy these speakers? Like you got to buy them right now, cash. Got can't do it later. You got to buy them now. And it was,
I didn't know about that. I guess they didn't come to my
well,
school.
I mean, I don't think I heard about it through. I think maybe once the guy approached me asking me if I wanted to work for him, but I mean, I've definitely heard a lot of secondhand stuff about it.
I remember the really stoned guy that tried to hook a turntable up in his car. Turns out it didn't work because the car
What?
bumps. He tried to have a turntable sound system in his car, and it had like no like shock absorption or anything, so it didn't work at all.
Wasn't there something like John Lennon tried to get something like that installed and it didn't work because the records would just melt
Oh, what he did?
from the heat?
Yeah, there wasn't a melting problem. Yeah, maybe he had a gyroscope or something in his. This guy just put it on his dashboard, so it should have melted. Yeah.
Cassettes are underrated.
Hmm.
to go
They
back
don't
to your
melt.
question, Mark, I think
Mm.
the official line is that people give a lot to companies in Japan, but companies do take care of you better. And admittedly, I've only had pretty crap jobs in the UK. But in
Yeah,
terms of um, like you are contracted basically for life, and like pay is pretty competitive, and like companies, like if you look at Western video game companies, especially, that's the only industry that I'm knowledgeable about. Like the common practice is we hire a bunch of people, and as soon as the project's done, we let all those people go. and then any profit the game makes is just pocketed by the bigwigs, right?
Yeah, and if you're lucky, you get on the credits.
Yeah, if you're still working there at the end and they like you, you might get in the
Yeah.
credits. Whereas the Japanese gaming industry is like, especially companies like Nintendo, they do keep their staff on. There's the infamous stories of when Nintendo was struggling in the Wii U era and the 3DS era. All of the management cut their pay in half before letting anyone go. And just recently, the Prime Minister said, like, oh, you should give your employees raises to match inflation. And like Sega, Nintendo, and a bunch of other companies like, yeah, okay, we will. And just like boost salaries by like 30%. So like that would just be unheard of outside of Japan.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
for
I
anything
remember.
creative, it's like Nintendo's retained a lot of the same people since like 1975. It's like people have been here for the entirety of the existence of video games, which I mean, unless you believe that they killed Gunpei Yokoi, which I don't really believe that, but
Do people believe that?
yeah, kind of. I don't know. That's just like internet scuttlebutt where, he was getting out of his car after his car crashed and a car hit him. So it was like, they're like, oh, it was the Yakuza. They had the Yakuza kill him because the Virtual Boy was bad. But I don't really believe that. That's kind of ridiculous.
Well, the Yakuza did kill the guy that was the CEO of the Osaka gyoza restaurant.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was in the news like a few months ago. So
You don't fuck up the gyoza.
No, yeah, I guess they had some bad gyoza somewhere. I don't know. And
Does that mean gyoza is to the Japanese mafia what the gabagool is to the Italian American?
Yeah, what is gyoza? It's a meatball with the pasta around the meatball. That's what it is.
Yeah, basically. It's like a lasagna in your pocket.
Yep. Yeah, and you get 2 or 3 of them in your pocket.
Maybe what this crowd wants from this movie, I don't know, would it like speak to you like louder if it were a modern one with the video game chief who's been there since the Famicom?
It helps me that I can't directly relate to it because it makes it less depressing. It's like immediately off the bat, I was like, oh, it's about a guy with cancer. I was like dreading like just being sad the whole time, and it was really not only just kind of hopeful, but it wants to be hopeful, and the guy wants to be hopeful. And it would be much more difficult if it was a job that I could directly relate to.
Yeah, I think there's an element of nostalgia to the film, which is helped by the film being like, it wasn't, like we said, it wasn't a release, but now it's basically a period piece. And that gives it a feeling of like, he's looking back on his life and there's some happiness in this film. Like, it's called living, it's not called dying.
Yeah, it's not called doomed. No, but that's the thing, is that when he goes out to those nightclubs, it's like genuinely kind of magical, and it's like he's experiencing all that stuff for the first time, and so are we, because we weren't alive. And if we were alive in 1952, we probably wouldn't have been drinking in Japan in 1952. So it's like sometimes when I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I kind of felt like this, where it was like this kind of painful nostalgia for something I never experienced. I think there's a word for that.
There's definitely a German word for it.
Yeah, German. There's like 6 German words for it.
Actually, I think I know what you're talking about. I think it's like a Scandinavian word, like it's Finnish. Well, Finnish is its own thing, but I think it's a Scandinavian thing you're talking about.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm not going to dredge that word out of my memory because it's not there.
It's called anemoia.
Okay, where's it from?
Medium.com.
No, I mean, where's the word from? Does it say that?
It's from medium.com.
Oh.
Sometimes I Google things too quickly.
Oh, okay. I just want to check how my geography's doing.
Well, I see a lot of references. It doesn't say the like the.
No, I think it's an English word, Matt.
Yeah, I might have like Latin roots, but
yeah, the Finnish word wouldn't have that, I guess.
Well, like, for whatever reason, we keep talking about video games on this film set in 1950s about an old man dying of cancer.
Well,
but the video game industry is built on nostalgia for things I wasn't even alive to play.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel nostalgic for all these games from the 80s.
Anything fantasy is like based in the idea of what happened before civilization, before the Industrial Revolution, at least, way
Hmm.
before that.
Back when men were men,
Yeah, it's like
everyone was white.
there's like every Legend of Zelda game basically is some like technology-less society, except for Breath of the Wild, which seemingly takes place after a society more advanced than ours has been destroyed. So
Yeah, you would be surprised how many of them have that. At
yeah, I
least a
guess
Got
little
so.
bit.
trains and stuff. Yeah.
There are trains. Okay, fair. There are trains and
Sailboats
boats.
were the height
It
of 18th
definitely
century
Hook
technology.
Breath of the
shots.
Wild leans into that more than any of the others.
Mm.
That's part of why it's my favorite one, is because it reminds me of Metroid games. It's like bleep bloops.
Hey, do you
And
think
also,
he's
it's
gonna?
just one of the best games I've made. But there you go.
Yeah, no, that's in my top 10.
Do you think Kenji's gonna haunt the park?
In like a nice way though, like a Casper.
Yeah,
He'll
but
be
it'd
like
still be.
in Japan. There's the thing of like after you die, you become a god, right?
Hmm.
He'll be like the cameo summer of that park, I think, to those mums at least.
Okay, I just had an image of like a little girl running to play on the swing, and there's like a spectral old man on the swing, and she's like, ah! Yeah, I mean, he'd be benevolent. She'll still freak out, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had a few students that are terrified of the Cookie Monster, and I've been told during this class, during these hours, do not unleash the Cookie Monster.
Well, how rare do you, I mean, I know it's a very different time period, but how rare do you guys feel like public parks like that are in like urban Japan?
oh no, they're pretty common.
Meiji
Okay.
era, so from when Japan opened up for sure. I mean, before that, I'm sure they had something too, but they were like very consciously aping the Western systems. So
Okay.
they wanted their park system to be something like you'd find in I guess, I don't know, New York or London.
So Teddy Roosevelt, it's his,
He,
he's the ghost that haunts this park.
well, no, he was in the national parks. He's in the massive parks.
Oh
We're
yeah.
talking urban parks. That would be like there is a guy that the guy that did Central Park, I guess, would be the ghost of this sort of park. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it still amazes me that we got so much built here, and then, now people are just trying to take it all away, especially libraries.
Hmm.
Pretty
Oh,
amazing.
are they knocking over libraries? Okay, burning the
I
books.
mean, they're trying to sabotage everything.
Oh yeah, you can't make a profit from a library.
If I don't make it out, then, just let everyone know that I don't want to live here.
I've fully on been a Kindle reader for several years, but I mean, I people still rock a lot of books in Japan. I've said,
Mm.
like my daughter will go to the nearby rental place and rent DVDs. I mean,
Yeah.
an anachronism in the States.
We have one. We have Videodrome.
Videodrome. Okay, I was hoping
The
you were
only
going to say
one.
Videodrome. Yeah.
It's been the only one for a long time. It's really funny.
Right, right. Well, now it's a niche market, isn't it? Where in Japan it's still a
Mhm.
pretty massive market because, well, I mean, again, look, I mean, I guess in 1952, but think of just how packed that office was, just with like physical data.
Yeah. I
um,
mean, now you would just try to go in on a Zoom meeting to try and get your park built.
no, not in Japan. Not in
Oh, not
Japan.
in
You'd still
Japan?
be doing
Okay.
paper forms and stuff. I mean, there's just, I think they just like last year were like, okay, we're gonna have a digital cabinet member, so maybe we'll start doing some of these things digitally sometime soon, which means 10 years in Japan.
When you say digital cabinet member, I'm thinking of it's like just a 3D CGI,
Hey,
like
buddy.
Yeah, it's an AI. It's a robot.
Hey, hello,
Oh, Asimo
chatbot.
is 18 now, so he can join the government. So
So,
to be basic for a second,
Okay.
if you guys had 6 months left to live, what would you do?
well, again, I
Travel.
can you easily travel?
I would run up a ton of debt.
Yeah, I mean, who cares, right?
Yeah. I'd run up a ton of debt, leave it in my will. No one pay this stupid debt off. It's just me. And also probably try to ride the craziest roller coasters possible before I'm like unable physically to ride roller coasters.
I mean, I had at least, I had a few weeks of uncertainty where I didn't know what that I had like relatively plain Jane lymphoma. Sorry, No, I'm just trying to talk it down because it's nothing like what you saw in this movie, right?
I totally understand it. I mean, I
But
have a friend.
I definitely got to
Sorry.
fire up my butt to, make some music and, start doing more podcasts, stuff like that. Right. So,
Yeah.
I got that creative spark, which again, that's my one little disconnect with this movie. And it's not an artistic thing. It's just like, yeah, I don't connect with, I want to get a park built before I die, but for someone else, yeah, sure. Why not?
If I could get like a third of the belt line built before I died, I mean, if I could, then I just wouldn't really have the faith that I could do it. I guess you have to be kind of high up to do that type of stuff.
Luke, I assume your answer is just to finish Kingdom Hearts.
No,
The
it would
first
be
one?
do a bunch of writing.
No, all of them.
Oh, I've never played any of them.
I had never played any of them, and I went back for like the 20th anniversary. I was like, oh, actually, they are good.
Yeah, that's sort of what
It's unfair that they've become the punchline of the entire games industry.
I always thought that, like, how Ready Player One the movie was. I always sort of assumed that's what Kingdom Hearts was like. So I never.
No, because Kingdom Hearts is actually made with love by people who like these things.
Yeah,
I mean, it is because it's now like Pixar is in there, the live action Disney stuff is in there. They seem to be suggesting that Star Wars is going to be in Kingdom Hearts 4.
Whoa.
It is leaning closer
wild.
to getting a bit Ready Player One, Space Jam: A New Legacy.
It's like
But
an RPG
that's
days, good.
It's just Disney. Disney is a concept, and it works, and it feels very wholesome, but then incredibly weird in Japanese.
I mean, you know what shouldn't have worked is Super Mario RPG, and that totally worked back in the day.
Mario RPG. And then the Paper Mario's, Mario and Luigi, they were bangers.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to play any of that stuff because I just was like, I don't know. That was the first RPG, technically the second, but the first RPG I actually finished was Super Mario RPG.
Nice.
So
I cried.
I guess the question that we're going to be asking for the films here is it a film or is it filth or is it something in between?
Is that the question?
Is it?
This is absolutely film.
This is a film.
Yeah, you can't
I can't even. It would take me the length of this podcast to list other good films, which are also films which this influenced.
Yeah, I mean, there are ones here that are just obvious. Although maybe it's a word about ranking. This is the beginning. This is number 100. So there's definitely, according to IMDb users, 99 better films than this one.
Like, I hate rankings and scores, and especially any form of cumulative score. I think it's utterly meaningless and useless to discuss art in that way. But this is definitely only so low on the list because most of these people ranking them do not watch foreign films.
Yeah, or black and white films. Like, that's probably at least some people.
But that's
looking at the list that we've got ahead of us, there's a lot of stuff in there that's like, if this was like an individual critics list or was just from critics, they would not be in a position because it's the general public. But that's going to make it more fun, right? I don't just want to be doing artsy black and white films every week.
That's what I was saying to you off air yesterday. Like, at first I was like, well, there's the AFI list, which has a lot of good stuff, but that's just American films. That's AFI, right? So that's
I think Unspooled did that already anyway, so I don't really want to just copy Unspooled.
And also, it's like, I was like, well, I also want to do the, like, quote unquote, the filth, right? I want to do the filth too. So how do you do that properly? And it's like, well, this weird populist rating system that Luke hates seems like the best way to do it.
I like the idea of a top. Like I just said earlier that Zelda Breath of the Wild was in my top 10. I don't have my top 10 ordered. I like having a top 10 or top 20 and be like, it's somewhere in there.
Yeah, like
out of order.
It's like when you used to have reviews in magazines that were a percentage. What the fuck is the difference between a 94% and a 93%?
Well, and so many of these ratings end up like skewing, like anything over a 7 is good and anything under a 7 is bad, which is ridiculous because if it's a 1 to 10, then under 5 should be bad and over 5 should be good, right?
That's why the only numbered rating system I think is actually good is the old 5 stars.
I think, doesn't Famitsu have like a 1 to 81 or something like that?
No,
like
Famitsu's in 40, but it gives you 4 different reviewers.
Yeah, that's
So you get
That
four
breaks
score.
your
No, no,
brain.
no, no. Yeah,
Yours
okay.
is pretty
It's
good.
four. It's 10 out of 10s.
okay.
So it's
Well,
out
I
of
mean,
40, but it's because they have 4 different reviewers reviewing out of 10.
that's like a little better, but still, I just feel like everybody tends to skew just everything skews towards if it's good, you're gonna give it a like no, there should be almost nothing that's a 10, right? Like
Right.
that should be almost nothing that exists.
Well, this film actually, here's one that more just qualitative instead of quantitative, but Throne of Blood is not on the top 100 list that we're looking
Hmm.
at. And if people are curious, this is frozen in time as of March 1st, 2023. Once we get through them all, we'll go see what else is there, but that's how this podcast is functioning. But I don't know. I guess Throne of Blood obviously doesn't have as much of an emotional depth charge as Ikiru, but I like it better. I mean, it's got
I've
samurais.
this the thing about Ikiru is no one's ever recommended this to me. People
Hmm.
have recommended me Throne of Blood or any of his samurai stuff, but that's part of the great value of just diving into a list like this is
That's
that
yes, that's the other point. It's not that we're like, oh, the ratings are serious, but like, oh, there's so many things here that just we wouldn't have thought about. No one would have, recommended this film to us. We now have to watch like 10 terrible spoof movies over the next few years.
it's funny because a lot of the filth wherever bad, a lot of the bad movies are things that I've heard were bad and I'm more curious about than the good ones I haven't watched.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
for me, I don't watch much cinema. And when I do, it's stuff with dinosaurs, robots, or spaceships.
Gotcha.
So, like,
Films.
this podcast is an excuse to make me watch actual films. So I am curious to see all the stuff in the top 100 list because, there's stuff in, I think in like about a year we're going to be watching Citizen Kane. I've never seen Citizen Kane. I don't particularly care to see Citizen Kane.
Oh, you're
And
But it's
that's what
watching
makes
that.
me
good if I
excited.
do.
You're
That's what
watching
makes
that
me
within the next
excited
2
to
months,
see.
man. It's
I'm
weirdly
excited to see
89 on the
reaction.
list. Yeah, it's weirdly 89 on the list. So
It's
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 like
the
6 months, yeah.
Beatles. It's
or
the
something like
Beatles.
that.
Like you can either love it, you can hate it, or you can just go in. You can absolutely dislike that film, or you could be like, "Huh, interesting." You just get that angle. I don't know.
It's
I'm making it sound more.
you can love it, you can hate it, or anything in between.
I just pitched the idea of movie reviews in general. You can have an opinion. Dun, 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 dun.
All right.
I think it's like the Beatles in that it's like one of the most charged opinions that you can have about stuff. But spoiler for many episodes. I like it.
It's a film. Okay.
It's a
hey,
film.
we'll see what Luke says when we get there. I will say of the Filth, the one that I've already had like 4 different people request the Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas. So just as an interesting little behind the scenes, like that seems to be like a standout for some reason. And I haven't seen it yet. So
I have only seen the first Flintstones, and I will say that was hot garbage. And it's supposed to be much better than Viva Rock Vegas.
Are the B-52s in the first one?
I think.
Okay, I can't remember.
It was like Halle Berry was in it being like uncomfortably hot. And that's the only thing I remember aside from it being bad.
Okay, we'll get to that before too long. That's in the not too distant future.
But is there a scene where she sucks off Fred Flintstone while he tries to hack a computer?
I watched it at school, so probably not. Yeah, but I think there is a swordfish in it though.
Ah, cool.
But it's like just a swordfish that they're using to open a bottle or something.
Yeah, and then he goes, "Yeah, what a life, living for the weekends."
What I specifically remember is one of them is the garbage disposal, and you think it's going to say something clever like that, and it just goes, "This job sucks."
Yeah, that's our future. Yeah, for sure. I haven't.
Well,
yeah.
No, that was the better one. Our worst one is in our future.
Okay.
I'm talking about the better Flintstones film.
Okay. Yeah, but you want to visit Rock Vegas every once in a while. Okay.
Eventually, we may have social media and things to tell you about for this podcast. But we're recording this quite early. But this is a brand new podcast, so make sure you get your ass over to that Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star rating and a review. Whatever podcast app you're listening to, make sure you rate it. Tell your friends, share it, shove it up your bum, whatever you need to do. Make sure you live life to the full by getting the word out about this podcast.
Load it onto your Tesla.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the meantime, official rating, Phil.
Film.
Okay, it's a film. Yay.
Okay.
Okay. I have.
We've got an opening and an outro sorted.
I've got a. Actually, it's worth Mark hearing this too, because I'll be sending you links as they come. But what I am going to put on this USB for you, Luke.
Yeah.
Speed 2 cruise control. 1931's M. Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever.
Hell yeah.
In
I can play those 2 Game Boy games.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that one.
in 2001, A Space Travesty.
Right. Which is our next one, right?
That's the next one. And if y'all are like kind of same time, same bat channel, all that.
There's no reason I can't do this next week. So
yeah, unless I'm pretty sure they're not calling me in early that morning. So Mark, just the next 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, or we might have slightly wonk schedules or not. And then when are you going to Korea?
The 31st, and I'll get back on the 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Well, cool.
So you're barely gone. Okay.
You been to Korea before?
Nope.
I've always been curious.
I know nothing about Korea. I'm going because my girlfriend and her friends are going. So
I just love Old
I know
Boy
the
so
food will
much.
be good, and I want to see a colorful castle. But that's about it.
North
Hell
or
yeah.
south?
No, you go hang with my boy Kim Jun.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna steal some propaganda and bring it back. It'll go great.
I've watched like 20 like tour videos of people going to North Korea. Like
It's
sometimes
fascinating.
I know.
Their subway looks amazing.
You're still recording, by the way, Matt.
Yeah, I know. And people still hanging around. They
This
can
for the
hear weird
Patreon,
shit.
is it?
Yeah. I'd like to leave some extra chitter chatter if it happens. So I don't know how many of our Patreons are going to jump straight onto Ikiru, but
So I've got stuff to say about minorities, so I need you to stop that recording.